Hey everyone, it's Natalie, and I just had a few quick updates before we get to the meat of the episode and all the tolerating that we do here on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. So, I hope that you've heard that we have a Patreon, and now we have added a goal to get 25 Patreon members supporting the show. Once that happens, I have some cool perks planned out to release. Spoiler alert, one of them is a pen pal program because I love mail and I love putting stickers on envelopes. So head to the link in the show notes, head to the Patreon, and consider joining us and all the fun we could be having. Also, every Tuesday on Instagram Live at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, we are partnering with Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous to bring you Still Comfy with Jules and Nat. It's a show where we're looking at our comfort TV shows and movies to see if they still make us feel warm and gooey on the inside. So check it out. And I can't wait to see you, whether it's on Patreon, Instagram, or in the DMs. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Hey tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guests and I chat about how, as life goes on, you still end up tolerating a ton of men. Today, my guest is someone who has recently become one of my favorite people on the planet. Wendi Cooper is the founder and creative director of C-Spot Run Productions, which was founded in 1977 as the first full-service concept-to-consumer creative. And did I mess it up?
1997.
97.
Yeah, not 77.
Jesus, I thought that was on. And I wrote it, and then my brain, I'm keeping that in because podcasting is humbling.
It's funny. Okay, take it away, Natalie.
All right. Take two, tolerators.
Take two.
Wendi Cooper is the founder and creative director of C-Spot Run Productions, founded in 1997. We know I'm not great at numbers. As the first full-service concept-to-consumer creative agency. She is a D2C, which is a direct-to-consumer for people who need to know the lingo, consultant and expert. And honestly, she has become one of my fairy godmothers. And she's been raring to go and get this episode recorded so she can tell me all the tea about all the men that she's tolerated. Wendi, introduce yourself to the tolerators.
Hello, tolerators. So I'm assuming my audio level is just perfect.
It's perfect.
Okay, because we neglected to do our sound check. We are just... and you are one of my favorite people on the earth. And I love the fact that you even associated fairy with anything that we talk about, because I love butterflies, fairies, and fairy dust, and everything that is like Tinkerbell-ish.
Well, and I didn't even put in my little intro that you're a happiness and joy warrior.
Yes.
Yes.
I am.
Yeah.
I forget that.
What do you mean you forget that?
Oh, well, is that a serious question?
I mean, no. Okay. No. But it's very important for people to know that the reason why you love glitter and Tinkerbell and all of it is because it plays into your persona of being our happiness warrior.
Was it you that I was telling us? I left somebody a message recently, and I said, it was when, my brother told me that we were at the playground in Hicksville or something like this. I don't know. North Massapequa, Long Island. I was just a young girl. And my brother told me, get over it, Wendi, because people do not start dancing in the grocery store like that. And I was like, are you kidding me? Do you really mean that people aren't going to start singing and dancing in the street and in the grocery store? And I can remember how I was so affected by the fact that that's never going to happen in my life.
Yeah.
And I really thought life was like that.
Bye Bye Birdie was your Santa Claus, and he just ripped it from you. Yeah.
Yes. Bye freaking Birdie. Yeah, man. He did. He ripped it right from me.
And And maybe I don't join in a flash mob or a Broadway production, but I do dance my ass off at grocery stores. They have good playlists from time to time.
I was actually in Skechers a couple of months ago, and they had the best music playing.
See?
And me and this lady about my age, it was this black lady, we were in line, and I noticed that we had to wait in line for a while. It was like during pandemic too, and so it was like 6 feet apart. You're like 6 feet apart, right? Mm-hmm. And she starts tapping her foot, and I'm like, I go, you want to like start dancing because this is like awesome, you know?
That's just
nobody else. We would have got kicked out. Two crazy ladies over 50 dancing in the aisle.
Now, when it's a teenager or a young woman dancing, they're just getting to live. But if it's you, they're like calling people like, are you okay? It's so funny that you think that you would have gotten kicked out of Skechers, because I'm pretty sure that, like, isn't that what TikTok is? Is that people just dancing to ridiculous music and taking videos of themselves at McDonald's? I don't understand.
We should have actually done it. I can't remember what it was, but it was down there for a long time. It was very nostalgic music. So the two of us were like, "Oh my God, this music is great!" But probably the younger people standing in line did not get it whatsoever. Wow. But that's okay. That's the effect that music actually has on you as a human, right?
Yeah.
So Happiness Warrior. Let me tell you why I say Happiness Warrior.
Go for it.
You know, I got. Recently, I just noticed that so many people were always speaking. You know, the thing you didn't mention is that I have several podcasts and that kind of thing. And I love to tell sonic stories and create sonic experiences, things like that. And so I started to realize that a lot of people are talking a little too much about mental frickin' health. Did you hear my neck crack?
I know, it's very trendy right now and we incorporate it on the show, but it's not like therapizing you. Yeah.
And that people were really wanting to tell the sad story of one's life, you know, and then the rising from the ashes or the dragonfly from the mud or whatever it is. You know. And I was like, freaking A, shut the F up. Can we just talk about, you know, happy things, or can we spin it into a happy thing? At least do something like that. And I started to feel the need to be a happiness warrior. Yeah. Like they have chief happiness officers now, right? I think that's a really beautiful thing, you know? So I think it's important. And I like that very much. So I do try to do that. Now, ladies and gentlemen listening, that doesn't mean that I don't bitch about stuff.
Oh.
Right. Like, let's talk about a little bit about some of the men I've tolerated.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start? Do you want to go all the way to starting out in your career, beginning your career?
Okay, so my career. Let's start my career at what everyone knows my career to be.
Sure.
Which is working with C-Spot Run Productions, which is where I helped very big companies bring products to market across the globe. Okay. Yep. But I did that for direct response, meaning it's a very complicated world. And I was on the Beancast this week, the number one marketing and advertising podcast. So I was a guest along with Saul Colt and Greg Verdino on Bob's show. And something we talked about was how the process of getting a product on the retail shelf is a very complicated process when you're starting at concept, right? Yep. And so that's what I would do. But I would also do the creative, and I would do the website. My team would, and we encompassed everything in house. So concept to consumer, CRM. Yep. We called it different things. I was awarded 17 Telly Awards for my work, the commercials that I produced. I did Walter Cronkite. I worked for CBS News. I did a lot of really great commercials and content. But I was also, C-Spot Run was also responsible for fostering that through the entire process all the way through to the consumer. So setting up the fulfillment, managing the campaigns, all of that. I became very well known for that. Okay, C-Spot Run became known for that. And I led a lot of mentorship programs and things like this for the industry. And in fact, when you sign up for a subscription, you're going to see all of the legal jargon that goes along with it. Yep. So years ago, we would lobby and go to Washington, D.C., and we created, I literally, honestly helped create what that text says. Yeah. Okay. So I've been involved that much in that direct response marketing space.
And
Okay?
you know everyone, because anytime I mention anything that I'm doing, you have a direct connection to whatever I'm watching, experiencing.
Yes.
Everyone knows Wendi.
Yes. 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 And I know them and they know me. And, okay, so men I've tolerated in that respect. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to say names. Is that okay?
We tend to not say, we tend to
Can
not
I call them by
names.
their initials?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
We usually give them fun nicknames.
Okay. Well, this is the hand.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I can say where it was, right? I can say the company I was working with.
As long as they're not going to come after me.
They don't exist anymore. Actually,
well, there
this doesn't exist anymore. Okay. So I was a consultant. And I was a consultant in Washington, D.C. for a very big company that had a very big magazine. And it also was a partner with AOL at the time.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. Anybody, you guys can figure out who that is. And there was this guy. His name was, I'm going to call him the Hand. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I was brought in to train this team that was leaving the book division, because books, this was 2000, right after 9/11, so 2001. And the book division was now becoming the digital division, but they didn't realize that yet. So they were trying to find something for all of these people to do. And so they found me, I came in, and I was going to teach them how to spot the right kind of product to do infomercials for, right? And why it would be great. And so I was there more to train them how to enter into direct response and find products, and then produce the shows. Okay, they were already producing shows for music.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks. But they didn't know how to do it for products. So they needed. That's where I came in, and I worked with them for 2 years on doing this. All right. So the lead guy, he couldn't bear the fact that I knew more, if not everything more, than him. So one day we were in a conference room, and this dude, man. Okay, now if you know anybody about Washington, D.C., every man dresses the same. They all dress with khaki pants, a light blue, like, collar shirt, right? A white one or a light blue one, but they're all with the khaki pants. So this is kind of like what they wear. Yeah. And then the dark blue jacket, right? And then tie. Okay, you can envision this guy. It's like Mr. Conservative. And he stands up after I'm trying to explain to 12 people, do my job, that this budget is not being allocated properly. And this guy, the Hand, basically is allocating the budget. And the budget is quite nice if it was being allocated properly. Right. So I needed to reallocate. Part of my training is to show them where to put the budget. All right. He does this. He takes his hand. Now you guys can't see this at home because you're listening. But he literally takes this gigantic hand, puts it right in front of my face, in front of everyone, just like this, Natalie, right in front of my face where I can smell it. And he said, enough. Shut up. Sit down. And I have to tell you, I shut up and I sat down.
Well, because we've been conditioned to, like, not rock the boat or wake up the beast if they're already acting out.
So this same guy, okay, so of course I went to the president who hired me, the CEO. Yeah. Hired me, and I basically reported it. But I had to work with this guy for the next year and a half, right? And this is a man that really felt as though I should tolerate him sticking his stinky hand that he could have had wrapped around his whatever 10 minutes before in my face, telling me in front of 12 people to shut up and to sit down, right? It was just horrible. That was horrible. So that's something that really affected me as I grew in my career. That I never let happen to me ever again, obviously.
Well, obviously. Also, could you imagine if the tables had turned and he was giving feedback on the way that you were allocating funds and you put your hand in his face and told him to shut up? the things that would be said about you, you'd probably be escorted from the building.
He actually, anyway, he didn't have a very long life at the company, right? Because he was an imposter. He was one of those people that basically, I can do this job, but then, they had to bring me in to teach him how to do the job. He's fully capable of learning how to do the job.
Right.
He just, as a man, couldn't tolerate the fact that a woman was there to do that. And the rest of the team was mostly women.
Oh.
Right. So it wasn't like the team was a bunch of guys. I actually don't even remember a guy on the team. There was 3 women. 3 women. And if there was a guy, I don't remember him. We did a very successful show for them.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. I did everything. It was really good. It's called Steve Hood's Total Dance, and it was really awesome. It was just awesome. And they gave me a lot of freedom in my creativity, but they also sunk the boat because they didn't buy their media properly, but it doesn't make any difference. That's something else. But that's a man I couldn't tolerate, or an action by a man that is just disgusting and not able to tolerate. Now I have tolerated a lot of very things other women would not have tolerated. Because I worked in entertainment, and I didn't really care if this celebrity guy wanted to pinch my ass, because hell yeah, let him.
I mean, if that is your attitude and you want your ass pinched, go for it. But again, I think what we're coming to learn is that everyone has different levels of tolerating, and therefore you have to be respectful of everyone's individual set of boundaries.
Yeah, it's interesting because generations, we have we just grew up differently.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember going to work in Santa Barbara. I worked at McElhaney Levy Real Estate, and I was the assistant to the vice president. And I was in my mid-20s, so I must have probably been, I know I was playing a lot of racquetball, I had a really nice tight butt, blah, blah, blah. And I was standing at and it was when, oh my God, polyester first came on the scene.
Yeah.
And so we had these high-waisted polyester, perfectly fitting, non-wrinkle, wrinkle-free pants, slacks that we could wear and wash, right? And it was just amazing. I had like every color, brown, green. Now I'm thinking about it. It's like I was so in love with these things. And it was perfect. So I remember standing there. My butt looked really good in them. And I'm probably 23. And I'm standing at the thing. And this guy Steve, walks by. And I remember him saying to me, damn, your ass looks good in those pants. Are those new? And I turned around and I went, thanks, Steve. Yes, as a matter of fact, they are. They're called polyester. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
So it was like made my day.
Well, there are men who will make my day if they mention my ass. And then there are men who, if they mention my ass, I literally want to run into the ocean. Like, I was like, please don't look at me.
But that doesn't mean that it's like, sure. I think always, Natalie, has been how people say things to you, or the intent of the action. But I do think because of Me Too, right? And because most of my stuff was, well, I don't know. I worked and lived in Paris. I worked for Egyptian people and very wealthy. They treated women a completely different way. My boss treated me. He told me he was going to shoot me once. He's like the ex-chief of police for Anwar Sadat. And I used to joke with him when I got to finally know him a little bit better, like he was going to kill me, that he didn't do a very good job. I always would remind him, Fuad, you did not, let me remind you didn't do a very good job for Anwar Sadat, right? Now, who does that? Who jokes with somebody like that?
I mean, probably you.
Right. He grew to love me. But let's jump to another career point.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was when I was the last one was because of just pure jealousy. This guy couldn't get over the fact that I knew more than him, and I learned a big lesson from that. later on in my career, after that happened, if we want to take away a value lesson from everything, is that I would really, when I went into a conference room filled with men and women, and I would take the floor, and I would control the room, and I would leave it, and I would make sure that I did, because as somebody said to me once, as a consultant, you're there because you know more than they do, and you always have to have that attitude, or you have the attitude that you can learn, but you have to, because people don't like consultants. So my next one, probably the men I've tolerated. Okay, I'm just going to tell you this guy. I loved him, and I tolerated him because I loved tolerating him. He was like a little powerful guy in Hollywood. Right? So we talk about knowing celebrities. It was like my daily thing, right? Like Tom Cruise sitting on my desk eating a donut kind of thing.
Yeah.
When Tom was much younger, but Dave. I could just go down the list. But I happened to be the assistant to the guy that ran the place, and so I had a lot of perks. I had a lot of power in LA, actually, because I was his assistant, and New York, but I wasn't in New York. I was in LA. He was 2 weeks in New York, 2 weeks LA. And I had a lot of freaking connections at a young age because Wendy's calling from X office.
Yeah.
People, pick up the phone. All right. So that was cool. That was that whole world of doing that. But he also had a dress code. Okay. He had a dress code. So I was not allowed, when he was in town, to wear anything but mini skirts and high heels. And I couldn't wear nylons because I don't think I lived in Paris yet, but in Paris is where I learned that you never wear nylons. But yes, no, the guy had a particular dress code, so I always had to look really, like that.
Yes.
And it was okay with me because that was the style. It was, mini skirts were actually the style. This was 1980 something. And I adored the fact that he would compliment how I looked. He was my boss, for crying out loud. Could I have probably sent him off to the gulag during Me Too and talked about, he never touched me, by the way, never touched me, right? He was just the epitome of the little short fucker in Hollywood that had control of so many people, right? That I was his right hand, right? And it was so odd. It was really cool. And so, you tolerate stuff sometimes because it's kind of
cool. No, we talked about a job that I would tolerate, having to work for a guy that would undermine me a lot and talk over me and all of it, because I was getting to meet so many cool people that were coming into town and all of that. And you just keep that like running tally list of like, do the cons outweigh the pros, or do the pros outweigh the cons?
Oh, I can't even tell you. Jonas Salk was one of our clients. That's on a different spectrum. So I did tolerate that. And that was actually, that's like, what, like you said, what's our toleration factor?
Yeah.
Level factor for cool toleration, or, the things that are going to bring us. I mean, if you can see that broader spectrum, right? Like even today, I remember, so do you watch Apple TV's The Morning Show?
No, but I have heard of The Morning Show.
So on a morning show, that's with Jennifer Aniston. Shari Belafonte is one of the she's like the director, the showrunner or whatever there, right? And Shari, actually, when I worked for this guy, was one of our clients, her husband, at the time. But Shari at the time, I knew Shari. Like, we were friends because of this guy, this boss of mine. And she was so young and whatever. And so I went on Twitter, or I don't know where I went when I saw her on the show. And I tried to get a hold of her. I said, I remember, it's me.
It's me, Wendi.
It was 45 years ago, but still. It's funny. The same thing with Nana Visitor.
Mm-hmm.
Nana Visitor, she's the daughter of Tippi Hedren.
Mm-hmm.
And Nana was a Broadway. She was in it's when the understudy one.
Chorus Line.
Chorus Line. So she was in Chorus Line. She was leading Chorus Line here in LA.
Yeah.
While she was here, I only just hung out with her because she was a client. She didn't have any friends.
There you go.
So I was like always at like the stage deli with her and stuff. So that was, and anyway, she was on some platform where for $20 you could get a date with her or a lunch with her, or something with her. And I went, okay, should I like do that? See if she remembers. But anyway.
I cannot wait until people have to pay to have lunch with me.
It was kind of fun. I go, I didn't know this platform existed where you can actually say, pay this amount of money and you can do this with, you can have 10 minutes. Oh, no, you know what it is?
It's free Cameo.
You.
Oh.
No, they'll endorse your product. So they'll do a pitch for you.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. More on men I've tolerated. Let's see who else. Not my husband. I'm not going to talk about men I've tolerated in my personal life because that's boring. Because it's the same as everybody else is tolerated.
Do you know what I find fascinating about you? Is that you walk into a room or a virtual situation or anything, and you're honestly trying to help people understand how what they're doing could and should be better. And I'm assuming that as the person who gives people a lot of feedback, just naturally, because you've been doing it for years, you can't always be like hitting home runs. It's got to make someone fragile at some point.
So are we relating this back to toleration factor or?
Well, no, I was just.
How did I? You are absolutely right.
Yeah. But I'm just assuming that eventually either like the guy with the budget.
Someone reacts.
Yeah. Someone reacts and they lash out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's unfortunate because we as women are forced to take feedback that we didn't ask for just walking down the street. And I feel like when the tables are turned and it's you, the expert in the room, you're just kind of asked to take along with that you're going to get lash out. But if I lashed out every time that someone told me something that I didn't want to hear, I would be called difficult. I wouldn't be getting good references or anything like that.
Yeah, so you're right. And, I used to teach a lot, right? That's how I kind of, so I taught for many, 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 many years. And I taught as I didn't get paid to teach. I didn't get paid to speak. I created lots of programs. I helped a lot of inventors and people understand the path to bringing your product to market in a safe forum because so many people are vulnerable, especially innovators and creators. So that's a difficult one because being honest with them means typically their life savings. Yeah. And so I learned that if I wasn't honest, that I had to know that I did everything I could to give them the best advice I could, lead them and guide them in the right direction. My personality is to be a bit abrasive and a bit abrupt, but at the same time, people love to hear me speak because I make them laugh and I teach them. And I am like a Joan Rivers kind of person like that. If I wasn't, you would be bored and you would not come and hear me speak again. Right? But people clamor after I speak to want to talk to me outside, this kind of thing, right? And I give them the attention and I shake their hand and I take them to the side and I tell them exactly what they need to do. And I can tell you so many people that were so upset at me for telling them what they needed to do with their product. Yeah. And then they did it. And then a year, 2 years, 3 years later, all they could do was say, if it wasn't for Wendi Cooper and me listening to her, I wouldn't be where I am today. And this could just be from change your color palette. Yeah. Right? You've got a kid's game. Your kid's game is black and white. Change it. Change it to red, yellow, green. Right? This is a guy named Kurt. And he did everything I told him to do, and he got distribution for his game with Hasbro, with the game people, the Hamiltoners, whoever those game people are. there's like a controlling mafia for games, right?
Oh,
There's only a couple of people, couple companies that do games, and to get into the game world is extremely controlled, right? And he got in, right?
Yeah.
He got in because he didn't change his game. He just listened to what I had to say, and he did it, right? He didn't like it. You know, nobody else was telling him to do that, but I saw it was so simple. Appeal. It has to look fun. It has to have this message of taking that away, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Natalie Katona, host of the podcast To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. Are you a business owner that would like to start advertising on podcasts and want to work one-on-one with the podcast host to craft the perfect message for your business on an episode? Well, you're in luck. I'm a one-woman operation, and I have ad space open on future episodes of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. If you are interested in learning more about booking an ad with our show, please email me at menI'veTolerated@gmail.com. Thanks, and I can't wait for our future collaborations. And as a fellow creator, I know that when you've conceptualized something, it does become like literally your baby. And then when it's almost like telling a parent that they're not parenting correctly, but also it's so important to get outside perspective because you are so close to it.
That's right.
There have been times where someone says something and I just look at them and then I go, duh, why? Why did I not think of that?
Yes. So here's a weird example, and my husband will tell you he has no idea where my brains came from because I graduated high school. I never even took an algebra class, but yet I can run a performance spreadsheet and I can laugh at other people's performance sheets because it's like where are you getting that from, right? And I honestly, so where it comes from is 27 years of doing it, everything, every single thing. So how could I have not learned the foundation, the fundamentals, the creativity, what works, what doesn't work, all sorts of stuff. Okay. So, but that's what makes me me, and that's what makes me special, and that's why people hire me. So if you hire me, like the Formula V people, right? They were referred to me by someone who referred them, and they came to me. I didn't go to them. They came to me. I had them and the other brand that they had completely on track for 6. So I'm going to tell you, I think I could have made Formula V successful. Yeah. But I couldn't put up with their ignorance. So here's clients I can't tolerate. Right. Not just men. Let's pretend they're men. But a client that is not, you cannot, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, right? How do you determine whether you're going to tolerate a freaking client, male or female, or not? Because I'm going to tell you, you don't have to tolerate a client. Right. That is an asshole. Right. That has unrealistic expectations. So if you can set them up front, great, which everybody should do. You should send a contract. You should send a timeline, which everybody does. But if the client just wants to send you a ton of money and get to work, right, that's basically the same thing as signing a contract. At the same time, it's an indication that they're going to be very difficult to work with. They're not going to be hands-on. They're not going to be collaborative. They're going to be intolerable. Yeah. Right. And I've never fired a client in my life until I fired Formula V. Yep. Right. Why? Because I could not tolerate their ignorance. I have to just be very honest with you, because it was coming from a place of unrealistic expectations based on an education based on ignorance from a few years ago that they then spent a ton of money. Yep. But then they come and they expect you to figure out how to fix it overnight.
But also by playing by their rules. So it's...
Thank you.
We have these rules. They have not worked. They've actually put us in quite a pickle. We would like to ship these rules right into your lap. And please try to fix everything while also adhering to these things that did not work.
Exactly.
Well, and I just recorded another episode today with a woman, and her whole business is coaching people how to rebuild their trust within themselves. And I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're in charge of what your client list looks like and whatnot, that does take a lot of trust within yourself, because it's real easy to fall into a trap where it's like, I have to take every client. Every client is $1. I need dollars and all of that. But you also need to know when it's like, ooh, I might be in a bad situation and this bad situation might get worse.
Yes, I've been several times in my life, in my career. First off, honestly, I didn't appreciate what I had when I had it, when I was really rolling in the dough, right? And I never advertised or anything. I built everything on word of mouth. I built everything on the programs I developed. I built everything just on being really present and being a face in the industry and contributing and all of that, right? That's difficult to maintain sometimes,
So tell me about you yourself as a creator and being a creative and some of the men that you've had to tolerate when it's getting your content out and things like that.
Well, so everyone at home understands. You can go to my website, cspot.run, the letter C, spotrun.com. There, I have a lot of commercials, not all of the commercials that I've ever produced. So from a creative standpoint, I write all the any commercial, pretty much let's just start with the commercials. So I've done several long form, which is 30-minute infomercials, but I really was the person that brought to the industry the hybrid commercial, meaning not a softened version of a yell and sell, and I was the person that took the 800 number out of the first commercial and drove only to a website. I did do that, and people thought I was out of my mind. I've never worked with an agency, because I was the agency. Right. So when you think of Mad Men and an agency, I was Mad Men. I was the agency. So Spot Run was the agency. But I personally wrote. I would conceptualize, write, then I would direct. I would storyboard everything, right, with my storyboarder. I would direct. I would produce. I would direct. I would of course bring my whole team in, right? My DP, and he brings his team in, which is all of his gaffers and all the equipment. And you do all of that, but you don't have that on staff. You never have a production company on staff. And then you plan, we would plan out the days. I would direct every testimonial. I would have a TD there. I would have, an assistant, whatever. I would do the set design. I would come up with the palette, the set design, the wardrobe. Of course, I'd have a wardrober there, but I would buy the wardrobe. I was a little bit crazy like that. But that's what gave me the ability to kind of control what I had conceptualized as a direct response expert. I have to think about what's the cost, what's the problem that this product is solving, and how am I going to relate that in a 60-second commercial or a maximum 2-minute commercial to a consumer, and also get them to engage and buy. Yeah. And so I always worked with the same editors and music people and colorists and all of that, and they knew my way of working, which was you would sit in an edit bay with me and you would have to try a million different things before I actually came up with a final edit. It's not, here's a script, here, Johnny, throw it together, that kind of thing. The heretics.org commercial on my website, that one, and I was handed 13 hours of interviews at Cold Springs Tavern Harbor, genetic genome thing of all these freaking boring scientists. Yeah. And it's for BRCA gene. So I'm an ovarian cancer fighter, and I have the BRCA gene. So if you watch that was literally me going through 13 hours, probably transcripts like this, of the most boring freaking shit in the world when you're reading it. Yeah. And now if you watch it, you see what I made out of it. Right? I didn't shoot any of that. I didn't ask any of those questions. I had to just make a narrative for this company out of it. And it won 3 Telly Awards or 2 Telly Awards. And it raised millions of dollars. Because it's a .org piece, right? It's not a television commercial. It's a pitch to raise money for a charity, or for research actually. And everybody should watch that because it's a beautiful thing. And then the Walter Cronkite, I was handed 12 hours of CBS News hired me, Times Media, And I was given 12 hours of footage that existed that Walter Cronkite did for the Discovery Network, I think, or the Biography Network, about his own life. And then he died. And then they hired me to do, well, what if we give you this footage? I went to Thomas Media, who I did Red Skelton for, and Outlaw Trail and all these things. And I said, look, why don't we do an homage to Walter Cronkite? And they said, well, I don't know how to do that. And then they realized that there was this documentary, and CBS News decided to do it. And they gave me all the footage and just let me write the script and do it. And they came back with one change. And this is a fucking awesome, commercial that I did. My most proudest script I ever wrote. But look at, I had Martin Luther King in there twice. And they said, can you take Martin Luther King out? You get him in there twice. Puts another event or whatever in there, which I did. That was the only comment from CBS.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
That is. Okay? You do great work.
Yeah. And I love that commercial. I love that script. I don't know how I came up with that beautiful script, but I did, and I love it. So I highly recommend everybody seeing Walter Cronkite. Go ahead.
I think something that we also need to touch on, because you kind of brought it up, but you kind of didn't, but then we didn't go further with it, is that you're very much self-made. Like you just decided that this is what your career was going to be one day, and then you learned it as you.
Well, what happened was I was working at Apollo Advisors in Century City. Chance, my son was probably 2 or something. I had just come from working and volunteering with the Clinton campaign. Bill Clinton comes in office so you can get the dates right? And I'm working there for I was an assistant to Eric Siegel and at Apollo Advisors, which is the old Mike Milken thing, which was great. I loved it. I loved that job. I was an administrative assistant. Great. I was a secretary for a very long time. I worked in construction management. I did all sorts of stuff prior to what I ended up doing for 20-something years, right? So I'm 67. So that's why if we start my life in that, what happened was I left that job to help my husband, Bob Cooper at the time, launch this thing called 6-Day Bio Diet. And we put a commercial. I tell this story other places, and that's how got me into it. And that eventually became an infomercial. Eventually I was that spokesperson. Eventually I was the everything person. It's not a great memory, but it was very successful. So I learned everything because I got thrown into it.
Yep.
And I was the responsible person for something that exploded because of Howard Stern. And then it grew into this huge infomercial and this cleansing diet that everyone was doing. I mean, so anyway, and then I lost everything because it was the Wild West of infomercials. And there are many men that I tolerated back then that I should not have ever tolerated, and that destroyed my life, basically, right? But I didn't just one day decide I was going to do this.
Right.
I went to help because they didn't even know what a sales tax was.
Right.
So I went into administratively help. This is where I got the Johnny Depp thing, right? So Johnny Depp with telemarketing, he worked for a telemarketer. I had telemarketing people there. All my telemarketing people were the actors that were all friends with 21 Jump Street. Yeah. Because the one girl was married to the Asian guy in 21 Jump Street. So all my telemarketing people were actors because I let them, they were great for telemarketing, by the way. And I actually let them go on auditions. Yeah. So they wanted to work there. So they all worked there, right? So, but I was running this whole company and I had to learn how to do that. We didn't even have a credit card, nothing. Yeah. Okay. So it's an understatement to say. What I did do was after running 2 successful and creating 2 very successful diet products, Slender Secret being the following one, which became the #1 diet in Brazil. We never talked about that. That was when I went on HSN. I was on HSN for years with that. That was very successful. I created that entire diet, R&D, the juice, the everything. Okay, I went to the American Nutrition. I did all of this stuff. That's after that success. I was represented by William Morris. After that success is when I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I want to just produce creative. And I wanted to just do the creative. I didn't want to do the R&D and the packaging and the this and that and the fulfillment and setting all that up. And okay. And so that's where I set up C-Spot Run Productions, came to me in the middle of the night, and I only wanted to produce. And that's where I taught myself how to do everything was, as John Lee Brody will say, he taught himself everything. I'm like, man, so did I. So did I. And I know nothing except for what I want to see at the end. And I hire the right people to come and compliment me. Yeah.
So when you were starting out with C-Spot Run and you were self-taught and teaching yourself and all of that, did you ever get pushback from clients or anything like that because you didn't have quote unquote?
No, because everybody was running to me because I had such success in the industry. Right. So Wendi Cooper had all of this success with 60 Bio Diet and Slender Secret. And that, that's how people knew me and as a host and all of that. And these successful products that everybody knew that I was doing. I was going to Canada with 60 Bio Diet before the shopping set network even had like real video. Me and Jeannie Cooper from Days of Our Lives or whatever she was on, right? We would travel together. That was a hoot. So people knew me from that. So what happened was everybody that knew me from those successes came to me. That's why C-Spot Run was so immediately successful, because everybody was just coming to me to produce. Why wouldn't? Right? So, but then once they got there, I would ask these key questions like, all right, so who's your customer? They wouldn't know. What's your cost of goods? They wouldn't know. What's your price point? They wouldn't know. Who's doing your fulfillment? They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know any of the key things that they needed to know in order to actually do what they wanted to do. They just want me to shoot a commercial. I'm not going to spend because we get a part of the back end.
Yeah.
Right? So in direct response, our deals were, we shoot it for this amount, and then if it's successful, you get a piece of the back end. Well, in order for me to get a piece of that back end, I already knew I better manage the back end. Because this yahoo that doesn't even freaking know what his cost of goods is never going to manage his media right. Yeah. And so I came with all of that knowledge, which eventually organically evolved into the first full service direct response agency. The spot for direct response, C-Spot.
And it's amazing because yesterday we were talking about how when people look at creative jobs like our podcast, for example, I think because talented creative people make everything look so effortless, there's this narrative in people's head where it's like, well, it's easy to throw together a podcast. Natalie figured out how to do it, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And it's not just shooting the 30-second commercial. It's interviewing people. It's product placement. It's all of it.
It's everything. So because we, and then we used to do a lot of sweep shots. So if I did makeup and beauty, I would use a different DP and crew and gaffer because they knew how to light beauty. You know? And I loved working with Tom McDonald, and he did all my beauty shows. And then Greg Kendrick, he pretty much shot all of my Squatty Potty and stuff like that. Because I love Greg because Greg was creative as a DP. Right. And he would chime in and we would collaborate. People on my set always knew that they could collaborate with me as opposed to stay in their lane. Right. I have to tell you, an editor I couldn't tolerate. All right. So if you ever find yourself in post-production, I'm post-production 3 shows, right? 3 at the same fucking time. Sorry. All right. There's this one guy. He's really good. He's really good. He's really, really, really good. He's fast. He's quick. He knows his stuff. And I'm going, I don't know. I haven't really worked with anybody outside of, Henry and this. I don't know. Can you show me some of his work? No, I promise. Well, his rate was not a junior rate. It was a senior rate, right? And he threw everything so far behind. He was like one of these guys and I still can't watch the commercial he did. I can't watch it. And this is how I know Wendy Starland is because the music that's in that commercial is my girlfriend, Rachel London, Wendi and Rachel kind of wrote and published a song together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I really wanted this commercial to be really cool because it was all based around Rachel's song. And he totally messed it up. His timing was totally off. Everything about it. He was costing me so much money because he didn't sleep the night before. So he would come to work and he would just like shut his editorial bay door, and I couldn't prove that he was like in there sleeping and not doing work on the project. Right. So yeah, this is the first time I ever went out of house, out of place, out of my team. You know, I had too much work and I had to go find somebody. That guy should not be tolerated by anybody.
By anybody.
No, not by anybody, because he was a freaking loser. That actually he got paid, I got screwed, my client got upset, and I learned a lesson.
Which brings me to my next point. On to all the men I've tolerated before, we have 2 traditions. We have to walk away from the episode with a giant life lesson that we carry with us from all of our experiences tolerating. And then we have to manifest and make a wish for things to get better. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. We got to actually walk away in positivity, which you should love because you're the happiness warrior.
And this is why.
Yeah.
No. Okay. All right. So let's start.
All right. Do you want me to say my lesson first, or do you want to say your lesson first?
Can you, you say your lesson?
Okay. I will model. It happens. I think when I listen to the Wendi Cooper story and the more that I get to know you, the biggest lesson that you taught me was to ask for help, which I do not like to do because it's humbling. So that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from you, that it's through help and building relationships with the people around you. But after you build those relationships, you look at those relationships and go, could you throw me something? That it's how you get successful. And it takes a lot of navigating, social norms and all of it to do that. So you are a very good model to help me ask for help and know that anything is possible, but you need help to make that anything happen.
I think at the end of the day, I learned that most men, can I say this, are pretty closed-minded.
Yeah.
And they absolutely 100% cannot multitask anything at all. No, seriously.
No, I know.
And learning that a man can't think, you can't speak to him about one thing while he does another. Now, women, you can do that very easily. Yeah. I mean, I can make soup and you can talk to me about finance. Yeah. Super easy, right? And I'll remember what you say, too. And I'll talk back, right? So recognizing that, tolerating that, because for me, that is something that I become a little irritable with, because I do not understand how one can even get through life without being able to multitask, without being able to kind of like do this in your brain. For me, it goes like this. Cut. Right?
I've discovered that I can layer my thoughts. I can be thinking about one thing, but underneath that thought, like I can picture like up to 3 things at the same time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I explained. So my son is an artist and he's very similar to me. Right? I'm very much an introvert. Unless I'm out with people I know, then I'm an extrovert. Yeah. I just am. I mean, but I love to be alone because I'm a creative. Yep. And I can't create. When I am in the flow of creating something, I even surprise myself. When I get in front of my microphone and I have no idea what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do, and the end result is something that people love, right? And it even surprises me because I learned and I taught myself during the pandemic how to edit audio, right? I didn't edit my shows, everybody. I'm an editor. So that wasn't me doing that. But I had to teach myself now at 60-something years old. I had to teach myself more. Yeah. So, I don't.
It's okay. We love a tangent onto all the men I've tolerated.
Oh, you
before.
do?
Yeah.
Okay.
You still fit the theme of the show because you are a woman who has moved mountains. You have created things from nothing.
I have.
Yeah,
I've created a lot of stuff from nothing. And I raised 2 men.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
I raised 2 very, very awesome human beings. And I'm proud of that, right? They don't treat women like shit.
Thank goodness. I'll do my manifestation. I'm going to latch on to the fact that at 60 something years old, you had to teach yourself something new. I hope that one thing that listeners and the tolerators have taken from today's episode, but really all of our episodes, is the fact that you never stop learning. And when you never stop learning, there is moments where there's shame, there's frustration, there's humbling, but it's okay because we've weaponized those feelings against people and we've made them feel like we should avoid shame and frustration and all of it. So always be open to learn something new because it's through learning new things that you open up possibilities for yourself. I had to learn how to live stream a show and it brought me Wendi.
There you go. There you go. You know, it's funny because I was looking back like in like to 2019, right? And then the pandemic 2020. I was looking back on social media and all that stuff. Because I don't go on Facebook very often anymore. And so now I went back and I'm going, because I have like 98 notices on Facebook. It's like, oh God, I really should say hello, everybody. But I started to say, oh my God, look at that. Yeah, I used to do live streaming on Facebook. Oh, I used to do that on. And I was like, this is so, it was enlightening to me because one thing I think that I lack, and I don't want to tolerate even in myself, is that I get to a certain point with something, and I have a hard time super sticking to it.
Yep.
If you know what I mean, right? It's like, you know, I've got that. I used to sit down in front of my microphone every single day and do the 5 every single day, every day, and I did that for 142 episodes every single day. And then something happened where I'm at 161 episodes now, but it's taken me like forever to get that from 140 something that. But there, I want to be able to be consistent.
Yeah.
And at 67 years old, I can teach myself all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But if I don't stay in one place or in a few places, and I am very consistent in those places, right? So my lesson is, my thing is, create trajectory in your career. Once you've created a trajectory, don't take it for granted, because a trajectory means you're climbing and you're growing, right? As soon as you feel like you're stalling, you really have to acknowledge it. Don't make excuses for it, which is what I did. You know, I stalled because I went off and did a toilet stool company, as opposed to do the toilet stool company and keep my C-spot run trajectory going. I said, nah, screw it, I'm just going to do a toilet stool company. And yet my podcasting, I've always stuck to my podcasting, but I have changed the shows, the theme of the shows, or whatever it is, right? So it's consistency. I think in today's world, it's more about consistency that creates trajectory as opposed to failing fast mentality. And hey, if I don't get there and I don't hit it right away, I don't have a big audience or whatever. And then also the relativity of what you're doing and what your audience and your reach is. And so at the end of the day, if you're not doing something because you love it and it's a passion and you really love what you're doing, then don't freaking do it.
Then fuck it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Life is way too short, and you are spending time doing something that isn't giving you anything. It's only sucking from you. So if I could do my whole life over again, I tell you, I would be not letting so many people suck the freaking life out of me because I was just so willing to let them suck it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a nice person and that's what I do.
Well, also, we're made to feel like we should be in service of others.
Yes.
We tell children that they're very, very selfish if they don't want to, like, share their most fragile toy. And then when that toy gets broken, we then blame them for letting someone play with it roughly.
Play with their most fragile toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, we got a sick society, don't we?
We really do. That's why I got a podcast. Wendi, thank you so much for being a guest and just being a fairy godmother in my life. We've said a bunch of places that we can find you and the tolerators can find you, but if you want to do a quick rundown of them again, now is your time to brag.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the shameless plug. And here we go. So anybody can get in touch with me. It's Wendi Cooper at mac.com or Wendi, Wendi, at the letter C, spotrun.com. Mm-hmm. Everything is in one place, actually. So it's wendicooper.com or cspotrun.com. CSpotRun takes you to more of my portfolio because you can see the packaging that I've done, the products I've worked on, which is just some of them, the clients that I've done, I've had, which are numerous and many. I even forgot most of them. But that's, my speaker topics, all of that stuff is there. And then my podcast, which I have is, I have 50 or so interviews. It's called The Wendi Cooper Show. It is conversations with remarkable people over 50. They're called StoryViews because I do take an interview and I create a story out of it and I narrate it and then I put music to it. And so there's some there. Some of my favorites is the one with Rabbi Leader, another one with a few with Mark Anthony, the psychic medium who I adore and all of the books he's written. Another one that I love is episode 11 is with Basil Boss. You'll recognize him from NBC's The Blacklist. But these are really beautiful stories. And then I have my 5. Mm-hmm. So it's called The Daily 5. These are everywhere you get your podcast, by the way. Yeah. And that's like 100 and something episodes that every single one is different. And every single one is either funny or sad or hopeful or me talking about my alter ego or just something crazy. And it's 5 minutes because everybody's got 5 minutes.
Everybody's got 5.
You can kind of binge away for 20 and think about, Anyway, they're all kind of fun. There's 160 of them everywhere you get your podcast. It's called The Daily 5 with Wendi Cooper. Yeah. So thank you, Natalie, so much for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being part of my life. Thanks for acknowledging me on a day-to-day basis.
You bring me a lot of happiness and joy.
Well, thank you. You do too. Tolerators, you know what to do. There's a link tree in the show notes, and it has all of the places that you can find us, including Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, and all of it. So click on the magic link because it is the gateway to everything. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including a guy who wants to put his face or his hand in your face to demean you in front of a group of people. Smiles are for joy.